Hello and welcome back to We Love This Book. Today I have got Alice and Sarah with me who work with me at the Bookseller and We Love This Book. I thought it would be nice if the three of us could talk through our favourite books of the year. We've each picked two books that we really liked that were published this year, and also one book that we discovered this year that wasn't necessarily published this year.
Mine is a bit of an obvious choice. The Richard Flanagan, The Narrow Road to the Deep North, so obviously this year's Man Booker winner. It's an obvious choice, but I think it really is one of the best books I've read this year. It started off slow and it kind of normal enough theme, guy who falls in love, and then of course the war happens. And I think that's anyway always an interesting topic. And learning about Burmese death railway, oh my god. It is a level of kind of torture and pain where you keep going further in, you keep thinking that nothing worse can happen. And you keep thinking that somehow almost everyone's spirit will be broken, and somehow it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Did you know that it was inspired by his father's experience in the war? And when I heard him talk about it, he said that on the day that he handed the manuscript in, his father died.
Passed away.
Yeah. Right, so one of my favourites is Ali Smith, How to Be Both. And this was the one I would have had win the Booker. For me, the Booker is about like books that really play with what you can do with a novel.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed how much you could tell that Ali Smith really enjoyed writing it and playing with it. There's two halves, one's set in the 1960s, one's set in the 1560s, 1460s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's printed both way around. I had the modern story first.
Yeah, same.
That everyone I know thinks the way around they read it was the best way around to read it.
Yes.
And that shows how well it works.
I actually enjoyed it this way. I would have felt weird going the other way for some reason, and I don't know why that is.
But maybe everybody thinks that.
Yeah.
I think it shows how well it works. And it's just the sort of book that really reminds me why I love to read. Makes me excited about what books can do.
Didn't make the shortlist, but keeping with a similar theme, it is One Day. No, it isn't. I read One Day. I just felt like this one was another one that was just completely relatable, even though middle-aged man who was having a crisis in his life, his marriage was breaking down, his son wasn't the best relationship with him, but they were touring Europe together, and as they were going through all these beautiful cities, he was relating his story back from when he met his wife and their marriage, and it's just so sad and happy and funny. It's everything that you want in a book.
How does it compare to One Day?
For our age range, One Day is definitely the one, but this one is like a really good.
And Sarah and I both gave away One Day
For World
for
Book
World
Night.
Book Night.
Oh, no way.
I gave it to
Okay.
the interns at work because I thought it was a good book for students at graduation.
I gave it to my sixth form student.
There you go,
So,
Sue.
why don't you tell us about your next one as well, Sarah?
It's cheating because it was published last year, but the paperback came out in January, and I waited for the paperback because I always find them easier to carry on the trains and things. But I just thought it was such a great book, and I love Kate Atkinson. After the reception it got, I'm sure she was already planning this, but it was it's inspired her to write about one of the characters in and do a whole new book about him.
Love Teddy.
Oh, me too.
I love it.
Yes.
Are you in love with him?
Of course. Yeah, that really does happen to me with characters in books.
Yes!
Oh,
oh
same.
god.
A fictional character that you had a crush on.
Oh, good question.
For me, it's Henry in The Time Traveller's Wife. I read that when I was 17 and I was a bit infatuated.
It was Marion Keyes. Lucy Sullivan's getting married, and the main character was a guy called Daniel, and he just did everything right.
But I love this because it's just kind of time travelling through a really interesting period of time, and with a interesting concept like Time Traveller's Wife, but with a huge family, but this main girl at the start of it, and everything that she does and redoes affects all of them, and there's no perfect solution in the end, really.
That's the beauty of it. That's what you keep seeing, and I think that's why it touched so many people's hearts. That, as you said with the Ali Smith, that's a core component of a really good book. Is they've really gone out there and said this book can do anything.
My second book is The Empathy Exams by Leslie Jamison. It's a book of essays about the female body and pain and kind of identity. And it just really kind of profoundly got to me, and I wanted to tell everybody about it. It makes you think about what it means to be a person and a woman, and there's an essay called The Grand Unified Theory of Female Pain, and it talks about the relationship we have between gender and pain. It just really makes you think, and it really got into my head, and it was one I really wanted to talk to people about. So I don't mind a little bit of sentimentality, because I read a few reviews of this that says, oh, at times it gets a little bit sentimental, but that for me, I need things to have heart. I don't want to read a really dry essay.
Yeah, my next book is actually not a million miles away from that.
Okay. Yeah.
Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. Chilling, terrifying at times. So it's a kind of dystopian novel set in a world where Earth's temperature has gone to a very high level. Now there is mass flooding, so there's an ark has been built. So they decide that from now on women will be created, and they will be created with the purpose of either being one of three things: a companion for a man, a concubine for a man, or a chastity to raise young women to be concubines or companions for a man. And my favourite part is the women in the novel have to go into these chambers where they have to, control their hysteria. And yeah,
it's Victorian.
It is. Well, I think that's
certainly one of my favourite YA books of the year. But so much of it rings true, and it's horrifying how universal some of that is.
So I don't read a lot of dystopia, but is this a good place to start on it?
absolutely. When any genre is really good,
Yeah,
it breaks the bank.
Everyone wants to read it.
You compared it to The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes,
it reads very much a kind of like a YA kind of version. The ending is just
I can't.
so we can't say anything. She won. What award did she win?
Oh yeah, the best newcomer at the Irish Book Awards.
Yeah, so exciting to see what she does next.
Absolutely.
It'd make a great film.
Yes.
Cool. So now we are going to share a book that we read this year that didn't necessarily come out this year.
And this is the first one I read this year. This is William Boyd's Any Human Heart. And I remember seeing the production on TV a couple of years ago, and it follows a guy who, from being a child all the way through to being an old man, and again, some sort of reflection on his life. First chapter is set this 1923, so I mean, you know, he's growing up in a time where everything changes. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
Will be now, yeah. I might get it over Christmas.
No.
Yeah.
It's told in his journal, so it's quite short little sections, so it's kind of like a nice one to pick up.
The book that I read this year that was published a long time ago is Orlando by Virginia Woolf. Now, to my shame, I had never read anything by her before this year, and I have been on a binge of her this year, and I have read nearly everything that she's written. I think Orlando is my favourite of hers that I've read, and it covers the life of one person, and it takes it to a complete extreme because it's not just their lifetime. It goes from the 15th century all the way through to the 20th century, and it's one person. And kind of what I love about Virginia Woolf is that she writes what she wants to write. Orlando starts as a man and then becomes a woman. And again, it's just that, it just happens. In fact, I might have to find the bit where it happens because it's so great. No human being, since the world began, has ever looked more ravishing. Oh, I'm reading the wrong bit. Not that bit. Right.
Okay, excellent.
Okay. We may take advantage of this pause in the narrative to make certain statements. Orlando had become a woman, there is no denying it. But in every other respect, Orlando remained precisely as he had been. The change of sex, though it altered their future, did nothing whatever to alter their identity. And she's so playful, and she has such an amazing turn of phrase. It made me laugh out loud at times just with her observations. She just strikes that perfect balance between it's really witty and funny, but it's also really profound.
I went into the bookshop when she told me about it and was rifling through the shelves to find it.
I did tweet quotes from it, although I couldn't because the sentences are far too long. That's
Tumblr.
Wonderful, yes. Tumblr. Okay, right. What is your book that you discovered this year?
The Group by Mary McCarthy, and I had been half discovering it all my life because my mum first told me I should read it, and it was an old cover in a dusty, and I thought, you know what, I'm 16. And then my dad told me to read it at about 21. And then last year for my birthday, my best friend said, you know, I went into the bookshop, I described exactly who you were to the guy in the bookshop, and he said she should read The Group. But I just thought, oh my god, this book has been coming at me.
Yeah.
And of course they were all beyond right. It is 8 girls who graduate from college from Vassar University in the 1930s, and it's probably the first original chicklet, really. They start to build careers, they start to choose husbands. He just managed to strike a truth about the subject matter, the group, And the way the group evolves, is so believable. So you're thinking this person, you know, she's a very solid person, this is what's going to happen to her. Something entirely different happens. And then you think, yeah, but that's the truth. I knew that all along.
Are you glad that you read this now and not when it was first suggested?
Yeah, I really wanted to say to my mom, 16? Mom, there's bits in there, are you sure?
So I hope you've enjoyed hearing about what we've really enjoyed reading this year. We would love to hear what your favourites of the year. So please leave us a comment or talk to us on Twitter and tell us what you've loved in 2014.